All right, everyone. Thank you guys for joining us here today. My name is Alex, and with me is Amanda, and we are both onboarding specialists here at Kartra. So you may have met us before if you guys are new customers. Pretty much in our day-to-day, we meet with new customers, kind of walk them through the platform, tell them how they can use it to pretty much, fit their business. Now, with these calls, they're pretty much, we're just going to give you guys the basics, walk you through the email marketing in Kartra, kind of give you guys the ideas of how to use send emails, SMS messages, create automated sequences, and all the setup that goes on behind the scenes for all of that as well. If you guys have any questions at all during the event, feel free to go ahead and put it in the chat, and we'll stop at certain points to kind of go through all those questions and address them. Or we'll open the floor up at the end and you guys can just raise your hands after we go through the entire demonstration here. But just bear with me here 1 second. We'll go through the slide presentation first, and then we'll take that to the actual live demonstration where I'll go through and show you how to do everything within Kartra. But here we go. So email marketing in Kartra. So the first thing that you guys really need to know is the kind of setup process. Before you're going to be sending emails out through Kartra, the first thing that you guys want to do is set up your Kartra Mail. Kartra Mail is Kartra's built-in mail service. So you'll see it in the integration section of your account. And pretty much in there, you're just going to be entering like your send from email address and your reply to. But whatever email address you're using, we always say that, you want to have a domain that you're using for that. And you want to make sure that you're authenticating that domain. So make sure that you're doing the DKIM. So in your account, in the settings, you'll have your what's called the DKIM section. And again, we're going to show you all this when we go through the demonstration. And it's just a matter of copying and pasting the CNAME records and all of that into your actual domain provider. So it can get a little complicated, especially if you're not too familiar with authenticating email addresses, but pretty much that is going to prevent all of your emails from going to spam because the system knows that it is a verified sender. Next is the SMS gateway. So this won't apply to everyone, but only people that are planning on sending text messages through Kartra. Kartra gives you the ability to schedule and send text messages, but it does not have any SMS capabilities natively. So that means you will need to integrate some sort of third-party provider. The three ones listed here are the ones that integrate directly with Kartra. I personally see Twilio the most. Whenever someone, in our community asks, like, what's the best SMS provider, it's usually always Twilio. Not too sure about Plivo and Vonage, but of course, there are other options for you guys if you need them as well. And of course, if you're sending SMS messages through one of these services, you do have to kind of keep in mind those limitations on those accounts, right? So typically SMS providers will give you like limits on how many texts you can send. So you do have to kind of take that into consideration when you're scheduling everything. And how you send emails through Kartra, there's kind of two different ways you do it. The first one is broadcast, and they are kind of the manual way that you're going to be sending emails out. Broadcasts, they could be SMS messages or email communications. And when you go into it, the email builder kind of looks like this, right? Where you have the option to send a single email versus an A/B split test. So if you want to kind of split test your emails, Kartra is really good at giving you those results. And then you can, see whichever email is the most successful and use that one going forward. There's also the Kartra AI that is available within the broadcast builder. So if you provide the system with information, it'll generate text copy for you for all of your emails. And there is also dynamic variables, right? Like first name, last name, email address, and a bunch of other variables that you can put into the email, and it'll replace it with that recipient's information. The final thing is the rich HTML builder. I'll demonstrate that when we get into it. A lot of people miss it just because it's this little button toggle at the top, but pretty much it gives you the ability to actually design your emails out with a little more pizzazz, as I like to say it, right? In the normal email builder, it's just kind of text and, pretty standard stuff. You just have your text box, whereas the rich HTML builder is kind of like a page builder where you're just dragging and dropping different elements in. You can change background colors, add images. If you're doing things like newsletters or just like product announcements, it's probably the best option because you can add your branding and make your emails look very nice. And you can even save your templates for later emails. But with broadcast, like I mentioned before, it's one single email. And when you can either send it right away when you write it, or you can send it and schedule it for a specific date and time, and that's when the email will be sent out. Whereas the sequences, which we'll get into soon, is for those automated emails. So Kartra AI, this was actually added pretty recently, I think within the last year, and it's an AI tool that's directly within Kartra. So you don't have to go outside of Kartra to use like something like ChatGPT. All you do is click the Kartra AI button, enter your prompt, and it'll spit out a result, and you can say, make changes to this result or keep it, and then you have your text copy within your account. So the AI, I feel, is pretty good, especially for emails. If you're going to be using the AI, there's a few settings that you have to do within your account, which I'll show you in a bit, just to provide the system with information about your business that it can use when it's generating all of that content for you. And email sequences. Email sequences are probably one of Kartra's best features. I think a lot of people get Kartra for like the sequences and the membership features. Sequences are pretty much automated email funnels, right? They could be as simple or as complicated as you need them to be. For example, if you just want to send like one automated email when somebody completes an action, you can just set up a sequence with one email setup, and that email will go out whenever somebody reaches those starting rules. In this example here, it's just kind of a simple marketing sequence, and this is how the sequence builder always looks. You can have it set up horizontally or vertically, whichever you prefer looking at, and it always has a starting rule, and that's how people are getting into your sequence. In our case, the leads are added to this sequence when they complete a form, and you can have multiple starting rules. You can add people to sequences manually. There's a few ways you can get people into your email sequence, and then from there they're going to receive your emails in the order that you have them set up, kind of following the path that you have. In this example, again, we have a welcome email that's sent immediately. And then one day after that, another email is sent. 6 days after that, the system is going to check to see if they purchased our product. If they purchased, great. They're done our email sequence. Where if they didn't, maybe we're going to send them some more promotional emails until they do. So just kind of like thinking of, setting up those automated funnels, if that's something that you want to do. It's great for marketing, nurture sequences, right? All of our new customers that come into Kartra go into a nurture sequence where we're just reaching out, checking up on you guys, seeing if, how your journey's going and asking if you need help, right? So all of that is set up as an automated sequence. Once it's set up and running, you don't have to worry about it. All of your emails are going to go out in the order that they've been set up. And sequences can get a little more advanced than just emails. You can do actual automations with them, kind of like you see with this, where there's a split to see like if the system's, if they purchased or not. There's a few other options within sequence that'll kind of allow you to set things up based on those different automations within your account. And of course, we always have our support available if you guys need it. This slide presentation should have been posted in the chat if you guys want to download it. All of these links are clickable. So if you want to go in and kind of learn a little bit more, get more information, there's links to all of our training within this. But all right, guys, let me go ahead and switch over to Kartra, and I'll kind of walk you through each of these things within the account. And again, if you guys have any questions, put them in the chat feed. We'll go ahead and get to all of them after that demonstration here. But let me just go ahead and switch over, and we are in Kartra. Okay, so first things first is making sure everything is set up. There's a few areas you want to go to, right? So the first is going to be that integration section of your account, and Kartra Mail should always be that first option. No matter what, I think it'll always appear first. If you go ahead and edit this is what you want to make sure that you're setting up, because it's pretty important, as there's some automated emails that are going to go out according to this email gateway. So you can always edit your sender name. So ours in this account is the Kartra community team, but yours could be like your business name or your name, however you want to, your emails to appear when they're sending out. And then you have your send from an email address and your reply to. So obviously, like it sounds, your send from is where all the emails are going to send from. And when somebody responds to those emails, Kartra does not have an email inbox. So whatever reply to email you put here, that is where those responses are going to go. And that's the email inbox you're going to check. Now, something with this is you can see we have at GD demos, we're not using like a Gmail account or, a Yahoo, no free email. This is a domain that we kind of own. And it's important to kind of make sure that you have your domain entered within here as well, just so that you have the ability to authenticate it. Pretty much how that process works is if you go into your Kartra Mail DKIM, which is in your profile in the top right, you'll see it as one of those drop-down menus. And this is where you're able to authenticate your email domain. Because we have GD demos here, that's the email domain that we're using, we can pretty much send from any email address from that domain. It could be like, alex@gddemos.com or amanda@gddemos.com or, customer service at gddemos.com. As long as it's sending from this email domain, it's authenticated and verified. So again, that is going into your Kartra Mail. And something important with your Kartra Mail integration is you can only have one send from email address. This, whatever you put in this integration is going to apply to all of your automated emails. When you are setting up things like broadcasts and sequences, you have the ability to change your send from and your reply to address. It's not limited to the ones that you're putting in here. The ones that you're putting in here will always appear by default. And these ones will apply to all of your email notifications. If you're not too aware of what email notifications are, again, it's in your profile in the top right, and you can click on email notifications. And these are all like automated emails that are sent out by the system. There are some important ones in here, and I'll kind of go through them with you a little bit. But how they work is you have three categories: to your leads, to your team, and to your affiliates if you are running affiliate programs. To your leads, like it's pretty straightforward stuff, right? These are all emails that are going out to your actual leads, all of your contacts. To your team, these are emails that are going out to you if somebody completes an action, right? So like, say you're the type of person that you have a form set up and you want to know when somebody is completing that form. You want to get like a notification from that. We can go to in this category here, we can go to, let's do lead action notifications, I believe it's in that. And yeah, and lead fills an opt-in form, right? So this is the email that'll be sent to you if somebody completes an opt-in form. You can edit this, right? And this is the email that's being sent to you. It's just providing you with the form name, who filled it out, and their email address so that you can get that information. But you can customize these to pretty much provide you with anything that you want, right? There are also some I guess variables up here where you can say, or am I getting this email from any form or when they fill out a specific form? Is it going to, the account owner or a specific team member that's owning that responsibility, right? So you have those ability to kind of change that on the fly as well. And you can select these on and off. So if you don't want to be notified for any of these things, just make sure it's deselected and you won't get those emails. Whereas if you turn it on, those emails are going to go out to you. The other thing is to your leads. And these are important ones, especially if you're doing things like selling products or hosting a membership, right? Let's just go over to transactional notifications to give you guys an idea. Like, these are the emails that people are receiving when they're purchasing products from you. Order confirmation from buyer is pretty much like if somebody purchases from you, this is the invoice they're receiving, right? It has the link to the invoice and all of the transaction and information about their purchase. You can edit these emails. It's just important to make sure that you keep all of the dynamic variables that are already in there, because that's the important bit. You can also fully customize these emails, make them pretty using rich HTML if you want, or just keeping to the basic text. But it's a good idea to just kind of sweep through these emails and just see, make sure that you have the ones enabled that you want enabled, the ones disabled that you don't want sending out, and just editing the content of any ones that you want to just, make a little more branded towards your business, right? Because by default, they're very generic. And there are a lot of emails in here, right? Pretty much everything. These are all just the transactional notifications. So things like, when somebody cancels or if a rebill fails, it'll let them know. Or if their card expires, it'll let them know. Just kind of generic things that Kartra is going to do for you in the background. You don't have to always, if somebody's card declines, you don't have to manually send the card expiration. All of this is going to work in the background for you. You just have to make sure it's all set up to your liking. And of course, there's the to your affiliates. Again, affiliates really, you're only going to have access to that if you're on the growth plan. I know most people are just on that starter plan. But again, if you have your affiliates, these are all the emails that are being sent out to them. So you might want to take a look at those as well. And again, all of these emails are being sent from the send from email address that's in your Kartra Mail integration. So that's it. Oh, it's always important to make sure that this email address, this send from, is the email that you want all of those email notifications to be sent from. Alrighty, and that's kind of just the basic intro. The only other thing I would say in terms of setup is if you are interested in using Kartra AI. If that is something that you plan on using, just make sure that you go to the settings. Again, all of this is in your profile. Go down to settings, and you can scroll down and you'll see this AI business settings section. And pretty much it's just providing information about your business to Kartra so that the AI can use that information with all of the responses that it gives. It's just going to ask you, what product services do you offer? What's your audience? Who are your customers? Like who you're targeting? And how would you describe your business? You provide this information to Kartra, and then when you are writing your responses or your prompts using the Kartra AI, you don't have to worry about defining who your audience is. You don't have to worry about telling the AI, what products and services you offer, anything about your business. You can just give them the prompt directions, like write me a sales email for my business, right? And because Kartra already knows all of this information, it's going to use all of this when it generates that response. And you have the ability when you're using Kartra AI to say, use this information or don't use it if you're, maybe writing an email for something that's not for your business. And all of that, again, is in profile under settings. Alrighty, so that is all kind of the general setup information for Kartra. I think the hardest thing really to get everything working is that Kartra Mail DKIM, but we have great instructions available for them with a video that'll kind of walk you through that entire process. It sounds a little daunting at first, but it's really just a matter of just copying and pasting information into your actual domain provider. One thing to note, though, is that it can take up to 48 hours for the records to verify. So when you're first putting it in, you might see like, pending or something like that. Once you see this connected with a little check mark, then you're good to go. And to kind of give you guys an idea of the information, you're just going in here and it'll give you instructions, right? And you're just copying and pasting all of these, C names into that. All right, guys. So now that we've kind of gone through all of the setup and the basics, let's just move on to that communication section of our account, because that's really where you're going to be doing the bulk of your email marketing. When you go into communications, kind of separated into two different sections. You have your leads and you have your communications. So leads obviously is going to be all of the contacts that you have. It's your total list of contacts. So it's going to be everyone in your database. You can add leads. So like if you are moving over to Kartra, or if you have a list of leads outside of Kartra, you can always import a batch of leads. It just needs to be in a CSV file format. So like a spreadsheet or just a notepad CSV format, like separated by, I believe, semicolons, right? Or you can add them one by one manually if you want to do that as well. And then, of course, you have your total list of leads. And then if you want to break this into smaller lists, like segment your total list into, maybe subgroups, maybe you have a list of subscribers or a list of prospects or a list of members, right? You can create those sub lists. And we always recommend adding people to a list, subscribing someone to a list, just so that, they're active in your account. You'll kind of see if you go to the lead section of your account, people that are subscribed will have a nice green bubble, whereas if somebody is not subscribed to anything, we'll just kind of have this little gray bubble letting you know that they're really not active in anything right now. They're just sort of a contact. You'll also see a red bubble. Let me see if I can kind of pull that up here. And this red bubble will always give you, pretty much it just means like emails aren't going to that person for whatever reason. Sometimes it'll give you that reason, like a hard bounce. It'll tell you the date that was going in, and you can always hit the check again to see if anything changed, maybe if they, updated their email address and everything's going through. You'll also see things like if somebody put a spam complaint against you or just opted out, you'll get all of that information with that red bubble. And there's some ways that you can go through, scrub your list if you need to kind of, make sure that you always have those fresh active leads that you're contacting. And then last is the tags, right? Lists and tags are just ways to organize your contacts. Lists are more broad and they are public facing. So people, when they hit like every email that you send out through Kartra has like that little unsubscribe, option at the bottom of the email for people. And if they click that unsubscribe option, it'll show them what list they're a part of. So when you're making your list, it's always a good idea to name it something that you would want your customers to see, because they're going to see, oh, I'm on the, Kartra mailing list, right? And it'll have a little description showing, what kind of emails they can expect from this list. And if they don't want to be part of that list anymore, they can unsubscribe from it. And that way they, won't be receiving those email communications from you anymore. But the real bulk and where you're sending out all of your emails is in this communications tab. Communications is again broken into kind of two sections. You have your broadcasts, which are those one-time emails that you'll send out, and sequences, which are those automated email funnels that you're creating. With broadcasts, again, you're sending them either right away, like once you write the email, you can hit send now and it'll, go out, or you can schedule it for a specific date and time. So like say you want the email, you have a monthly newsletter that goes out every 30th of the month or the 29th of the month, right? You can schedule your email maybe a month in advance, 2 months in advance, and it'll go out once that date hits. When you are creating a broadcast, it's always going to kind of ask you for the name. So we'll just go in here. And I'll kind of walk you through the process of setting up an email, and we'll just go through all of these steps here. Not too complicated. So the first option is going to be send by email or send by SMS. If you are sending by SMS, it's always going to ask you for the SMS gateway. So that goes back to, making sure that you have a gateway integrated if you plan on sending text messages. Otherwise, you can just send by email, and you'll see by default, it's pulling up our Kartra Mail integration details. So that send from email and that reply to. But say we don't want to send from this email address. Maybe we want to send from support instead. We can change that, and this email will send from that email address, and maybe we want the replies to go to me instead. And then anyone replying will come to my email address. So you can change these for each of your individual broadcasts. The Kartra Mail one will just show up by default. And the Kartra Mail one, again, really just applies to all of your automated email notifications. And next is the recipient step. So when it comes to recipients, if you have your lists and tags, you can always target those specific lists. So you can say subscribe to a list and send this email to everyone on the list. Or we can say send this one to everyone on a specific list that has a specific tag, right? So you're able to kind of add bounds. So anytime you're using and, it's going to take both of those into consideration, where if you use or, it could be anyone subscribed to a list or anyone that has a tag, right? So it can meet either or if you use the and, they have to meet both of those requirements. There are a bunch of different, bounds that you can choose when you're setting this up. So if you want to target maybe people that subscribe to a sequence, or you want to target people that refunded an order, you can go and reach those demographics. You don't really have to worry about the lists and tags too much. Lists and tags are just kind of, the easiest way to send emails or target specific groups. For this example, let's just use anyone, or you can also send it to everyone in your database as well. But let's just do everyone that's subscribed to a list, and we'll choose our list, add. And you can see that there's one person in this list, and this email will send to one person. It'll always give you information about, how many people you are sending it to and how many people are blacklisted, right? If somebody's blocked, then, say you have 10 people that you're sending it to. Here, let's just do everyone in my database so you can kind of see what that looks like. Add, you see we have 31 people in our database, but 8 of them are blocked, right? So 23 emails are going to send out. And you can kind of see why people are blocked, right? Just by going through your leads and seeing all of those red dots to kind of get an idea. Otherwise, you can just send it to everyone that is, available to receive those communications. You also have the option to ignore GDPR and CCPA. It really only applies if you're sending emails to people in a GDPR region or in California. It's not a good idea to deselect this, right? Because you're just going to be ignoring those email rules. So always just kind of leave that unchecked to make sure that you're just following all of those guidelines there. Alrighty. Next is whether you want to send a single email or an A/B split test. So if you're sending a single email, right, it's just giving you one email box. Whereas if you're doing an A/B split test, like it sounds, it's going to give you different versions. So you have your version A, you have your version B, and you can add, I forget how many different versions. I believe up to 5, but could be wrong there, but I believe you can have a good amount.
It's 4.
It's 4? Okay, thank you,
Yeah,
Amanda.
it's 4. A, B, C, D.
Perfect. Yep. So you can have up to 4 different variations of an email, and Kartra is going to provide you with information of how that email is performing, right? Maybe your version A is performing better than version B. Maybe it has more clicks, more downloads. So then you just make sure, switch it out and make sure that you're only sending the version A going forward. Just some advanced marketing tools for you. It's not needed. You can just send a single email if that's what you're after. But this is like how the email builder looks. Pretty basic stuff, right? Like you'll see in any other similar email builder where you're just kind of writing text. You have your dynamic variables, so we can say something like hello first name, and whoever's receiving this, it'll replace it with that person's first name, and we can write out our email body, right? We have all of our fonts and text editors, attachments, all that jazz. But what I was telling you guys about earlier is this rich HTML toggle at the top. If you click this, it's going to give you an actual email builder that you can go in and design. There are a bunch of templates that are available by default, so you can look through here and say, oh, I like this template, maybe I'll use this, right? Drag it into your email, and then you're able to kind of go through all of this information and just change what you want, all of the text, images, things like that. Or you can build it out yourself and get a design you like, right? There's a bunch of different components in the side. So say you want to add like a video to your email, you can go to videos. We'll add like a full width version, drop it in here, and then we're just replacing this with our actual video, right? So just gives you a little more freedom to design your email, especially if you're doing things like newsletters, product announcements. You have this extra option of changing all of the colors for the backgrounds, choosing your different fonts, and adding all of your different components. There's a few Kartra components that you can put in here as well, like forms and, your calendars all linked through buttons and things like that. Once you get a design that you like, so say you're someone that is sending newsletters out, you can save your design as a template. And for any future emails that you write, you just go to My Templates and you pull that template out. And all you have to do is kind of change that information, right? So I can pull my template out, and maybe for this email, I just need to change, the content or any of the text, right? And then we're good to go. And of course, the dynamic variables work in this version as well. You just have to make sure that you're pulling them from the side menu. And typically, I like telling people to use the email rich HTML builder, especially if they're doing things like, again, newsletters. I feel like I keep saying that, and any sort of, things that you want to make sure are branded a little more to your business. A lot of advertisements, things like that. And that is pretty much, setting up your email content. Other thing to note is the Kartra AI. If you're doing the Kartra AI, it'll pull up as like this pop-up, and then you're able to enter your prompts, choose a tone, and choose your language. You also have the option to include your AI business settings. So this is what I was showing you earlier. It'll pull that information from your account. If you don't want to include that information, you can just deselect this and then click that button, and it'll generate the content for you. If you are using text, you can just generate with AI right away, and it'll generate it all for you. If you are using rich HTML, you have to have your email designed first, and then you can use generate with AI. If it's just a blank canvas, like with no content in here yet, the AI won't work just because it has no text to replace, basically. All right, and we'll just go ahead and hit next and move on to the next step. Just save this. Do headline and preview text. Next are your automations, and everything that you create in Kartra pretty much has an automation, but the ones for emails are if a lead opens this email, if a lead doesn't open this email, if they click a link, or if they don't click a link, right? And you can always do different actions based on that. So like maybe if somebody opens this email, maybe we want to assign them to a list to make sure that we know that we're capturing all of those people or assigning them a tag. Or maybe if people open the email, we want to give them points or grant them access to a membership, right? There's a bunch of actions that you can do with these automations in this step here. And then lastly is your send schedule. So you can save it as a draft. And this is important, right? If you are in the message and you're designing your email, but it's not done yet, make sure you're going and saving next just to get to this and saving it as a draft. If you don't get to this step and save it as a draft and just leave, you're going to lose that broadcast, unfortunately. So always make sure that you're saving it as a draft if it's something that you want to save for later. You just got to make sure you're going through to this step. Even if it's not complete, you can just go to this step, save it as a draft, and then you can come back to it at a later time and finish making it. Otherwise, you can, schedule it for a later date, and it'll give you, the date and time that's sending out, or you can do the send now, and that'll go out to everyone in your database. In our case, let's just save it as a draft. And just kind of show you what that looks like, right? Go back to our communications broadcasts. And now we have our email kind of saved here as a draft, and we can go in and edit it, or we can send it now if we really want to. All right. But really where I guess it gets more advanced is when you get into email sequences. Like broadcasts are pretty simple. You're just choosing your recipients, writing your email content, scheduling when it's going to send out, and then you're good to go. Whereas with sequences, it kind of just takes a little more just because it really depends on what you're trying to set up. Let's just go into this simple marketing sequence that we have, and I can kind of show you that. So with sequences, you kind of like any other builder in Kartra, you have your components on the side that you're able to drag and drop into the actual builder. And then you have your email content within here. So kind of like I was showing you guys earlier, this was the example that was in that slide presentation where it's going to start with that starting rule. And these are how people are getting into your sequence. In this case, our starting rule is anyone that's filling out an opt-in form. So maybe you have like a free offer opt-in form, or maybe you're saying like, fill out this form and get access to our newsletter or something like that, right? You can have anyone filling out that form getting into your sequence, and then they're going to receive those emails from you. You can also do any sort of other starting rule. There's tag, lists, purchasing a product, visiting a page, sequences, and then basic automation for any other kind of starting rule that you can think of. There's a whole list of things here. But we'll just keep it to that form. And then you can have multiple starting rules. You can just have one. And I'll show you in a bit how you can manually add people to sequences as well. But in this example, there's getting an email immediately after. And with each of these components, right, it's just if you're doing a send an email, once you put it in, it's the broadcast builder. So pretty much what I just showed you before, right? Where you're going through all the steps, choosing, where the email sender's from, who's receiving it, and all of that jazz. So the only extra thing that comes with the sequences is this first thing with the delay and the day and time. So the delay is always going to be, is somebody receiving this right after the previous step, or is there a delay for that? So maybe we can say, no, they're receiving this day 2 days after the previous step, or a couple hours after the previous step. Otherwise, you can always leave it right away. The day and time is when those emails will actually be sent out. By default, it'll send out at any day and time, and that's what this means, right? It'll send any day of the week at any time, but maybe you're the type of person that wants to send your emails only on business days during business hours. In that case, you can deselect Saturday and Sunday, and you can say these emails are only going to go out between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., right? And that way, if somebody signs up or joins your email sequence in the middle of the night on Sunday, they're going to receive that email on Monday at 9 a.m. during normal business hours. So typically, this is just if you want to set those bounds. Otherwise, you can just keep everything selected at any day of time, and then they'll just receive those emails according to that process there. Next is, again, all of those broadcast information. So you're naming the broadcast, choosing your gateway, choosing your recipients, and all of that jazz. And I won't run through all of that again. Once you complete it, it'll have this little square here, and then you're just dragging and dropping the line to connect everything. And when you're building it out, it'll probably look a little sloppy, right? You'll probably have things like all over the page. It's not going to be a nice line like this. All you got to do is hit this arrange items, and it'll put it into a nice line for you to make everything organized according to how you've got everything connected. You can also arrange, I like looking at it horizontally, right? But if you're a vertical person, you can do that as well, and it'll give you kind of a top-down view of your sequence. Alrighty. There's a bunch of different features in here. So send email, send SMS are probably like, the most generic ones and the ones you'll be using the most, whereas everything else is kind of just other automations and actions that you can do. So you can add, remove tags when somebody gets to a specific step. You can unsubscribe from lists, unsubscribe from the actual sequence, bunch of other basic automations for pretty much anything else. The true false split is a pretty powerful one. That's what I have set up here, where the system's checking to see did they purchase a product, right? And with your true false split, you're always able to say your conditions, right? So in this is has purchased product, true or false. If they did purchase, they're going down that true side. If they didn't purchase, they're going down that false side, right? And that's kind of how you can create branching paths, and sequences can really be as simple or as advanced as you need them to be, right? I've seen people create a sequence that is just set up to send one automatic email based on, maybe somebody purchases a product and you want to send a specific email out to them. You can just create one sequence with a starting rule as that product and one email that goes out to them. Whereas I've seen people create huge sequences that, loop in on themselves, or, kind of just keep going based on the different actions, or maybe you have many different paths that somebody can go down to get the right email, and you're just making all of those branches and things from there. So they could really, I've seen some pretty advanced sequences when it gets into this. Oh, Astine, did you raise your hand? I'll be happy to answer that real quick if it's something about sequences.
Oh, it definitely is about sequences, but I don't know if you're going to touch on it shortly. It was about abandoned cart sequences.
Yeah. What about it?
So basically what it was is that the tag for abandoned carts. So say, for instance, like they get an email saying you can purchase this offer. They go to they get to the checkout page, or the checkout page, and let's say they don't purchase. Will they get the abandoned cart? Will they instantly enter the abandoned cart sequence, or do they have to submit their details again?
Yeah, how that works is they basically have to provide their name, email address right within that abandoned cart. They have to be kind of listed as a lead there. So in the product section, the system automatically, I think, tracks anyone that's abandoning a cart as long as they're, providing that first step. So how, Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe how the abandoned cart works is when you're going through the checkout process, there's kind of two pages, right? There's the information page where someone's providing their details, and then they hit next, and then they go enter their billing information. If they fill out that first section with like their contact information, and then they make it to that section where they have to, put out their billing information, but they don't, that would count as an abandoned cart. Whereas if somebody didn't make it past that initial step, and is just, hasn't fully entered their contact credentials, they're not going to count as that abandoned cart, just because the system doesn't really know their information. So that's, I believe, how it works. Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong. But
yeah, it is. Astine actually posted it as her question in the beginning, and we'll get through everyone's questions from the beginning top down. It was going to be the first we went over, but I think one of her, so with the cart abandonment tagging, you're going to set up the product to tag the lead if they've completed the contact form of the checkout but didn't actually pay with their credit card. If they don't pay for the product within 30 minutes, then the system's going to tag them. For the sequence itself, like when you're sending a follow-up email for that, you can set the sequence starting rule as that tag that you're applying through the product cart abandonment. Now, so first off, it would be they have to input their information into the checkout, or maybe they're already a lead in your account and then they visit the checkout but then don't purchase, then they'll get the tag. Now, if you want to send them the email more than once, what you can consider doing is putting an unsubscribe step at the end of that sequence. So, you know, when they first get that tag, they'll get in there, they'll get that email, they'll get unsubscribed. Okay. You'll also want to set the tag to expire. So you could have a tag, it'll expire after maybe X amount of days or hours. Then that tag can be reapplied. Next time that person comes around to the checkout, if the system can see them through cookies, that's them, and they visited, or maybe they put their information in again, then the system will be able to tag them again since they don't have the tag, and then subscribe them to the sequence again since they're not already subscribed, and then they could get the email again. So when it comes to that, seeing it, it's basically seeing if they've visited the checkout, and that's going to be based off of if they're already a lead and they have cookies, or if they've completed that contact form in the checkout. Hopefully that helped answer your question.